Coming up this weekend, the Andre Fiaho show rolls on and touches down in Singapore. So be sure to get ready if you're a fan. Bring some popcorn. I'm sure they're going to be selling Andre Fiaho trinkets there, maybe. I mean, what are trinkets in 2022? Like
what would be
NFTs?
A Portugal trinket?
NFTs? Are they still a thing anymore?
I don't think they're doing great.
Well, we'll see how it goes, because for Fialho, this is his fourth fight with the UFC since he debuted in January. Lost to Michel Pereira on the main card of UFC 270. He was able to go out there and pick up two quick first-round knockout wins his last two times out. But coming from his last fight against Cameron Van Camp, which I cannot stress this enough, the fight against Van Camp was 3 weeks ago. His fight against Miguel Baez was a month and a week ago. Now he's taking on Jake Matthews, a guy who's forever on the periphery of the top 15 in the UFC, whose last loss of his own right came to number 9 ranked Sean Brady, where he got completely out-wrestled and grappled in that fight and submitted in the third round. But for Matthews, this is a guy, like, I can't say enough good things about him. 10-5 his overall UFC record since he debuted in 2014 as a 19-year-old. And you look at the guys that Jake Matthews has lost to, and like Andrew Holbrook's the only one where you go, Andrew Holbrook by split decision, but all the other names, James Vick, when James Vick was the hotness. Who else, Matt? Well, he beat Diego Sanchez. Beat him quite badly. His last loss before Brady was against Anthony Rocco Martin. Remember him?
Got rocked and submitted. That was a bad one.
It's Rocco now. But I look at the Jake Matthews wins, and I can point to some big ones, like when he fought Rostam Akman and beat him quite soundly, 59-15, the total significant strikes there. Or against Diego Sanchez, 3 judges scoring at 30-26 for Matthews. But he's never been able to make it over that hump against the big names. And this is a big opportunity for Jake Matthews, but also for Fialho, because it's the opportunity to beat a guy to then get another top 15 guy. Again, Pereira somewhere around there, big name, main card of a pay-per-view as last time. But Matthews gets you that Muslim Salikov, that name down there from 15 to 10, I think.
Alessio Zaleski would be the ideal next opponent for Andre Fialho if he is able to get this win. But Jake Matthews is weird. Like, he's a gatekeeper to a gatekeeper. You know, he's not a gatekeeper to the top 15 or the top 10 in a way like Derek Brunson is. But if you beat Jake Matthews, like you said, you're going to have a fairly big name opponent next. You're going to get one of those 20 to 15 guys probably. And it will be a really fun fight for Andre if he is able to get to that point. Because Jake Matthews is a very strange fighter. He's like a bridge. Like, bridges, when everything's right, they're very good. They're structurally sound. Everything's good.
Then you watch one of those videos on Reddit, and the bridge is...
You know Point Pleasant with Mothman? Like, Mothman took down that bridge, right? You gotta watch out for Mothman. Well, the thing about a bridge is, if you take out one point of it, the whole thing falls, because they're built that way so that everything supports itself. Jake Matthews is like a well-put-together bridge that you're a little bit worried about, because when everything's going right, is he a good grappler? Yeah, he's a good grappler. He can wrestle, he has good offensive submissions, he can get out from under guys if he is on his back, even though I would say that's probably the weakest part of his grappling game. Is he a good striker? Well, he dropped Liang twice when he fought him, and I'd say Liang's a pretty good striker, so yeah, Jake Matthews can get it done on the feet too. But Matthews does have a bit of an Achilles heel, and he is cut from that Alistair Overeem cloth, to where you do worry about Matthews every time he gets hit clean. And the Anthony Rocco Martin fight was one of the first fights that it really stood out, because on the feet, Matthews was looking good early on. In the grappling, Matthews was looking good early on. But the second he started to slow down even a little bit, and he became a little bit more hittable, his footwork completely went away. His hands that started up by his chin, they ended up down by his waist, and Rocco Martin hit him with a really nice clean shot up the middle. It hurt Jake Matthews, who shot for a panic takedown, and next thing you know, he's getting tapped out by a guy who, nothing against Rocco Martin, but going into that fight, I don't think a lot of people were predicting him to win that fight by submission. It was just the fact that he was able to rock Matthews. Matthews didn't really know what was going on. A scramble ensues, and Martin's able to get the submission win. The thing about Jake Matthews is, his wins seem to be over guys who he should probably be beating, and when he does seem to get one of those top-tier guys, he comes up short. But again, that Liang win is by far the best win that either one of these guys have in their careers, and that's always something I fall back on when I'm looking at a Jake Matthews fight, because when everything's going right for him, like I said, he's not a weak grappler, he's not a poor striker by any means, but his gas tank's only good, not great, and he's a fighter who can't fight tired. There's some fighters who, when they get tired, they can still fight at pretty much their maximum capacity.
Like Julian Erosa.
That's a good example. I even think, like, Dustin Poirier, when he fought Max Holloway, in the first 2 rounds, he could hurt Holloway with his power shots, and in the last couple of rounds, he's definitely tired, but he can still fight in a way that it's still sustainable, and he can still win rounds, even though he is tired. With Matthews, he does become a very different fighter if he is pushed heavily in a fight, and I do worry about him fighting a guy like Fialho, who has really good power in his hands, and when you're fighting someone with a suspect chin, it might only take 1 shot.
Well, listen, for Andre Fialho, I think people are starting to figure this out. We touched on it back in January more so when he was making his UFC debut. We said, okay, the fight against Chris Curtis, the fight against Glyco França, you look at some of these fights that he has lost, and he struggled with the takedown defense in those fights. Yes, when it comes to the striking with those guys, he's having success, or, you know, it's 50-50 in the exchanges.
He can get hit, that's the only problem.
He can get hit, but he can get taken down up against the fence with some of the double legs. His takedown defense isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. França is a good fighter, and so is Chris Curtis. You people know this by now. But if you look at it, I can point to one thing, it's that. But also, the fight against Miguel Baeza, he gets countered and hit pretty darn hard. Now, obviously, he wins by first round knockout, so numbers on a page. Well, that's pretty damn good to look at. Cameron Van Camp fight. I've said this for years now at this point, but Andre Fialho's best punch is his lead left hook, and he can throw it in a lot of different ways. He can throw it as a check. He can throw it to open things up. He can throw it as a jab.
It's like Tommy Morrison.
Make it a straight punch. But for Fialho, okay, so he goes out there and throws a lazy left hook with Van Camp backed up against the cage. He takes a little bit more time on it. Van Camp goes left hook of his own, right hook, and Andre Fialho's wobbling, and then Van Camp's pushing him back all the way across the cage. Now, how hurt was Fialho? I don't know, but it sent him all the way back, which kind of deviates from his game plan because he's a pressure fighter, forward-facing, best hairline in all of MMA, by the way.
I would say.
Andre Fialho, it's a straight
Would
line.
Jalen Rose be proud?
Jalen Rose, or as Matt called him when he was a kid, Jalen Rose once, but that's an inside joke. Our mom's going to like that one as I crack my voice, so
Wow.
Good fun there. But for Fialho, he then spins, reverses position, pushes Van Camp, and then throws a left hook and drops him. And Van Camp, once it's all said and done, he's like laying down like this, like, yeah, he got me good.
But that's the thing about Fialho. It's Cameron Van Camp and it's Miguel Baeza. Those are fighters who, if you do think you're going to be in the top 15, you better beat them and you better knock them out, because that's the thing. Those aren't necessarily the fighters of even Jake Matthews' caliber, and I do think that's why this fight is so interesting, because Matthews does offer more than just sort of a one-note attack. He can go for the takedown. He can strike comfortably on his feet, at least in small portions of this fight. And like you said, for Andrea, he does struggle defensively with some of his takedowns, so let's say Matthews is able to get on top in the first round. He might look a little bit better in the second and the third. He won't have to expend as much energy on his feet. And offensively, I do think he can do enough grappling-wise to where he might be able to steal a couple of rounds with his own wrestling, but I still worry about Matthews every time he eats a power shot in this matchup.
You don't see Matthews fight very often, and if you look at his 5 on in the time that he's had his last 5 fights, including the Rocco Martin fight, which was 3 years and 8 months ago, Andre Fialho's fought 10 times. Like, Fialho's very active, and even for him, he had a period of inactivity from the Bellators over to PFL to LFA, and now he's been on a run, UAE Warriors, ex-MMA against James Vick, and into the UFC. So, good opportunity for both guys. We look at the odds in this fight. Fialho open -150, -155 right now. Jake Matthews open +130, +127, or thereabouts. We have a look at the votes on Tapology. Price us there to you. Now, listen, I understand how Tapology works. I'm going to say over under 80% Fialho.
Probably over.
I'm going to say over. Oh, wow. 755 total votes. 80% Fialho. 81% by knockout. For the 20% that have Matthews, 82% by decision. Jake Matthews, I mean, well-rounded with his striking, I guess, would you say? With the striking offense. He's not going to throw any, odd angle punches. He's no Zhalgas Zhumagulov out there. But he is very, very steady. It's just, for a guy that came into the UFC at 19, I know he's 10-5, but he doesn't fight very often, never getting the wins over those top guys. To me, Andre Fialho's boxing got him to the dance, and I think it's going to get him a win this weekend.
Is Song Yadong the only good teenager who's ever been in the UFC? It doesn't often work out for these guys who come in when they're 19, 20 years old, and we have these great expectations for them. I guess Chase Hooper's looked better as of late, to his credit.
Maheshate could look good for him. He's 22 this weekend.
Well, yet to be seen, though. Not in the UFC yet. So, for Fialho, I do expect him to be able to win this fight. For Matthews, I do worry about his durability in this matchup, even in the first round. Again, I expect him to start really strong and fade as this fight progresses, but even in the first round, I can see Fialho winning by stoppage.
Big time opportunity for both guys. We're going with the guy out of Deerfield Beach who's made the jump over to Singapore with Brendan Allen, a couple guys out of Sanford. So both of us with Fialho in this matchup. You let us know who you have. Is it the Celtic Kid, Jake Matthews, or will it be Fialho? And some big time fights left on this card. 2 title fights up at the top. Teixeira taking on Yuri Prochazka, BJP. So you're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.